has held on to that lead, and Max Verstappen wins in Miami to come home first once again and extend the run that whenever he sees the checkered flag this season, he goes on to take victory.
What's up, guys? It is Richie here, bringing you Season 2, Episode 8 of the F1 Podcast. It is Monday, May 9th, and we have just finished watching the inaugural Miami Grand Prix. Andrew's here with me today. Erica cannot make it as she's feeling under the weather, so we hope that she has a speedy recovery so she can make it into the next episode. And then for those that are listening, we are also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So make sure to follow, and Instagram at the F1 Podcast. So make sure to follow us on all our social media channels where we post up-to-date content following the whole Formula One season. Also, I want to give a shout out to our friend, the F1Ian.com. I'm going to make sure his information is below. Our fans are great. He sent us a message on Instagram to show off to highlight our podcast. So we really appreciate the support. And he's actually got a great website that's dedicated to all F1, and it's generated so he can capture all the latest news, what's going on. So I actually find it very helpful to help with some of these conversations that we have in podcasts.
One of the best one-stop shops for all your F1 news, in my opinion.
Yes, I cannot agree more. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It was an interesting race this weekend.
Yeah, we kind of had a little bit of everything. From crashes and FP in the free practices to figure out the track, to people not participating in qualifying, to people making mistakes in qualifying. And then the race just kind of was like, eh.
I think it's a very good explanation. It was a trial by error race,
Very much so.
As inaugural races usually are. And so I think let's just get right into it. So Max Verstappen of Red Bull took the inaugural Grand Prix in Miami, winning with 3.7 seconds over Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc did take not fastest lap, took a pole position, which I think he now is tied with Sebastian Vettel for most pole positions by a Ferrari driver.
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz coming in at third, so double podium for Ferrari. Sergio Perez coming in fourth for Red Bull, Russell and Lewis 5 and 6, Valtteri Bottas, Alfa Romeo for 7th, Esteban Ocon with a huge jump from 20th to 8th, and Alex Albon 9th, and Lance Stroll coming in P10, despite all the penalties that happened towards the end of the race. So, Andrew, so what stood out to you this weekend? There was a lot going on this weekend, from if there was a celebrity, if you were a celebrity or someone of position of power and you weren't there, what was going on?
Every celeb and their mom was there this weekend. Holy smokes.
I think go ahead. Sorry.
I say, but it just goes to show that the US can do it upright. They know how to do sporting events. They know how to attract the big name people to come, and it's Miami, right? Why wouldn't you want to go to Miami Beach to watch, the F1 racing? And they had Michael Jordan was there during the week to, play golf with Pierre Gasly, had to play golf with Lando Norris. George Russell was with the Heat. And we talked about that last podcast and how they really did it up well for the inaugural GP. I was just, be honest with you, I was expecting a little bit more come race weekend. There was a lot of hype going into it, and I don't know. Unfortunately, the race to me was a little bit of a dud. It was a fun start and everything like that, but the middle of the race kind of got to your traditional normal racing, and then there was a safety car that made it interesting at the end. But I think it was a 3 to 5 star race this weekend for me in terms of what's going on. I think it's quite clear we can see that Red Bull and Ferrari are going to be the two front runners this year, and trying to figure out who's going to win between the two of them, and it's going to be Max versus Charles. I know we're only 5 races in, but there's nothing that dictates to me that says otherwise, in my opinion.
Yeah, and especially Max did not have the greatest of qualifyings going into Sunday's race, but he was able to get a nice jump on Carlos, and instead of Carlos and Charles defending, like it ended up having Max. I think Max passed Charles on lap 7 or lap 9, and then it was just no chance for Charles to really catch up. Like on those straightaways, like Ferrari does need to figure something out because like clearly, and especially with Sergio Perez towards the end of the race almost catching Carlos, and like luckily, like as a Ferrari fan, he locked up on one of those last laps that Carlos did kind of touch him a bit, but I wouldn't say it was like a very much of a penalty. But I think we saw some terrific racing in the mid pack, seeing the Mercedes come back, especially George Russell coming from P12 to come up to P5. And, just seeing that like DRS train of like the 5 to 6, the Aston Martins, the Haas, and then like Lando ended up catching in the middle of that until he got taken out by Pierre Gasly. There was the race towards the end was quite interesting. I mean, there's a lot going on this weekend, so it was hard to pay attention to the race at sometimes because you go on social media. Like I told you, one of the things that was going to stand out this weekend is like how are some of these drivers are going to be able to maintain focus with a new track, with all this glamour and all this like press and all these celebrities coming there. And I mean, I don't want to throw McLaren under the bus, but like other than Lando having a bad getting taken out, but I guess maybe they were focusing too much on the social media rather than racing this weekend.
I think the one thing we didn't really talk about was how hot it was going to be. Yeah. Like the track was sweltering, 52 degrees, I think, come around race time. I think it was like 33 degrees Celsius in the air temperature and the high humidity. So you could see even after the race, like Verstappen was just completely spent. Like he was in need for a drink because it was quite the I think physical battle toll on everybody that had that week. So or that had that race. I think that was kind of like a pretty common factor around that. And then with the temperatures being so hot, there was a lot of different tire strategies going on this week. I found out, which I thought was quite interesting. As probably one of the interesting parts of this race was there was so many options to do different strategies, and how like at one point I think the hards performed as well as the mediums, the mediums performed as well as the hards in terms of like durability, and like you had people. Like some guys were doing like I think about 20-30 laps on the hards, and they were probably doing the same times on the mediums too, right? So it's kind of like having an equal tire. It just plays everything around for everybody. So it's quite interesting seeing the strategies there. I think that's what helped bode well for Mercedes. They played a long game this week, or this weekend, I would say, especially with George getting caught out like he did in the middle with the hards. Because it took a couple laps. I think took a couple layers of the rubber to get melted off so that hard tire could perform, which eventually caused both Hamilton and Russell to go back down to like, I think as low as P16 for Russell at one point, but they were able to claw back to P5, P6. And, again, not having performance in the car, I think they figured something out a little bit there. Like it's there because in free practice too, they were, George was number one, was quickest, and then Hamilton was fourth. So there's definitely performance in the car. It's just trying to find out where it is come race weekend. And I think Mercedes can just hone that in. They can come fight in the top 3 here and make it a really interesting Constructors Championship going forward, I think. But, I think, McLaren had a tough weekend for sure, especially Ricardo. Lando, to me, he got screwed by Gasly quite a bit. We'll talk about that later in our upcoming segments. But tough weekend for McLaren. But I think I also agree. I also think it was a very, very tough weekend for Haas. I think they gave up a lot of points on the table there, especially with regards to Mick and his little incident at the end of the race.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a couple of things there. I think you touched on some really good points. Like the heat was definitely a huge factor in this race. And I don't know if you remember last year, but I think it was Valtteri Bottas when he was with Mercedes. when they had the all black outfit and they were racing, he's just like, oh man, this is just too hot. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's probably lucky they went to the silver arrows this year and just switched it up to maybe like deal with some of those temperatures. Yeah, it was tough. It was tough for Haas though, because this was probably the first chance that like Mick Schumacher was very close to scoring his first F1 point, and then he had that collision with Sebastian Vettel. I could just see the fans, whatever side you are, Team Haas or Team Aston Martin or Team Vettel, Team Schumacher. It's not.
Do you think Schumi went for a timeout afterwards?
I think there's probably a lot of soul searching. I wouldn't be surprised if they called each other after and just said sorry.
It's funny how like Vettel gets so pissed off on the radio if someone else hits him, but when Schumi hits him, it's like, oh dear God, it's okay. It's like that Gordon Ramsay meme when it's like the difference between him and Master Chef Jr. and the regular Master Chef, like when people make mistakes.
Yes.
It's the same idea with Vettel and Schumi, which I get it. It's funny, but I thought it was quite interesting for Mick just to absolutely bin it up the inside on him. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Lost all grip and then he just absolutely yeeted into the side of Vettel. A lot of questions going on at Aston Martin and Haas this weekend, but Stroll did end up getting a little consolation point there for the team, but nevertheless.
I wonder if maybe just there was a lot of pressure on Haas this because it was it technically was like they're coming to the US, so like in theory it is a home, quote unquote, home race for them. Well, it is because like Haas is like American team, but I wonder if that maybe played a factor into the drivers this week. But
they were also just in such a good position to score points, and then it just completely like they lost it at the end of the race, like completely bottle jobbed it for some points for the team. And it'll be a frustrating weekend to take a look back at the data, take a look back at the race for them. But again, you have 2 weeks to make it up in Barcelona, so I think they'll be thinking about it, and it'll be a matter of time for when Schumi gets his first points in F1 for sure.
Yeah, and I also like a factor I was really looking at this weekend is how some of these drivers are going to do on a track they've never raced on before. And we even seen like that one corner, I think it was 15 to 16, where we saw Ocon crash there. We saw Carlos Sainz crash there, because like not many of these drivers would have ever driven on this track before. Like they would have done it on the simulation. And that one corner, if I'm pretty sure that we're returning again back here next year, so I won't be surprised. I hopefully the FIA puts a little bit more protection in that area where both those drivers crash. But we can kind of get a little bit more into some of our thoughts of the venue itself. So we actually had a lot of fan questions today. Is there anything else that you want to kind of touch base before we get into it?
No, I think we have a couple of good segments coming up where we're going to touch base on everything with regards to the race. I look forward to talking about the post-race festivities, because I thought that was one of the fun highlights of this weekend, and kind of, bringing it full America in that case.
Yeah, indeed. And if those that people don't know, yeah, well, you know what? We'll save it. We'll save it into the later in the thing. So we got a couple of questions from Instagram and on YouTube. And so our first one is going to come from Alyssa from Toronto. She asked, can we get a review of the fake marina / water? Did that distract from people's focus on the actual F1 race? As I saw a lot of articles on the marina. Was it a good move? Did it get people who normally wouldn't watch Formula One to tune in? Or was it counterproductive because it took attention away from the race itself? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm pretty sure I saw tickets $800, $1,000 to sit in that USD, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. To sit in the long left-handed corner for the marina. Imagine paying $1,000 USD to, you know what though? It was a sweet boat party. Like there was like a ton of partying on the boats, but it was weird because I was like, if I was in that position, I was partying the boats, like, and I'm not paying attention to F1, like the race at all. I'm like, I'd be kind of, what am I doing here? Like, I should be going to the marina itself to go party.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there were some celebrities there that had no care of watching the Formula One race, and they were just there to straight party. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure there was a pool on one side of the track too. I saw, I don't know if it was Martin Brundle. I think it was someone else with Sky Sports, and he's just like, he's doing investigative journalism or whatever, and he's literally doing it straight for the pool.
Well, even like the Miami Marlins ballpark had like a pool, or they had like an aquarium that went around the entire like field. It's like, to her point, it's the sense that like, yeah, they throw these gimmicky things in there to kind of like make it a spectacle, right? Where I want to say it's because you don't see that commonly in Europe, right? You don't see that at all in Europe with regards to race weekends. It's traditionally the track, and that's pretty much about it, right? But with regards to it being in America, we'd like to, they do, even in Canada too, right? We'll throw in some, not gimmicky, but like throw some like show-stopping pieces into like our facilities just to kind of be like a wow factor to attract people to come. So, to a point, I think it works both ways. I think it brings new fans in, which they're wanting to do with this race, which they've been hyping to do with this race quite a bit for F1. And, you hope that some people do come who go to the marina are, new fans that, are more interested in the sport after all. But yeah, I know a lot of the articles take away from the race itself, but it may have had to, because I think the track, we'll go into this later, but the track, I think the marina needed it from the distraction from the actual track itself.
Yes, I totally agree 100%. And yeah, I was just trying to think, like, when the amount of videos that I saw just leading up to this was just like, oh, come to Miami, come to this. It was literally like all meme central, people pretending to jump in this fake water they had. I'm pretty sure it was literally like a big tarmac or something. I don't even know. Could only imagine the dollar amount on that. Ugh.
Well, I'm just saying, if I got a ticket there for free, I would go to the marina. I'd party in the marina. Why not?
So this is a call out to our sponsors. If you want to see Andrew at the Miami Grand Prix next year, especially on the fake marina, please write in the comment section below, because we would really love to send Andrew to Miami, and hashtag get Erica to Mexico too. Can't forget about that one. Oh, speaking about Miami, I don't know if you remember, I played the LMFAO song in the last week's episode, and I just want to thank DJ Hanabi for that song request in the pod. So we'll take requests from our fans.
Hey, play all night. Let's get it poppin'. I'm in Miami.
Not only that we love fan requests from you guys, but we also love when you subscribe and hit that like button, both on our YouTube page, our Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. This podcast is fueled by our fans, so we greatly appreciate all the support you've given to us so far. And we're having a lot of fun. We got some big, exciting things in an exciting couple of weeks coming up. So enough about me talking. Let's get right back into the pod. Couple other questions I have from some fans. I have Tyler from Toronto, and this is kind of more of a technical question, because we did see a little bit about this during the race. I think like on the straightaways with Ferrari and Red Bull, particularly Leclerc and Verstappen. But does Ferrari need to reconsider their setup and go for less downforce to be more competitive with the RB18 on the straights? And I know you're more of a tech guy, Andrew, so I think I'll let you start off with this one.
Well, I'm going to I want you to talk about this the most, because you're getting directly affected by this. But up until this point, this week, Ferrari have been beating Red Bull in the corners, right, and while Red Bull has been beating them in straights. This week we saw that Red Bull has now kind of leveled up with Ferrari in terms of corner speeds and, slow, mid, and, fast corner speeds, but then I've completely, again, dominated them in the straights. But there's a method to Matia's madness, Ferrari fans. Trust me on this. There's a method to the madness, and it's going to come down to the end of the year, and cost cap is a big part of it. But Johnny, I want your thoughts on this.
It's still early. It is still early. We're only a couple races in. So yeah, am I stressed? Yeah, a little bit. But I think with the new regulations, like, you obviously have to maximize of whatever the space that you have for any upgrades. And I think Benotto already mentioned that we're going to see some upgrades in Barcelona. And I think if we'll probably have the advantages on some of these street tracks if we go to Baku. I'm blanking on a couple of the other ones. Monaco, yes, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Knock on wood. For those that don't know, Leclerc, he just has no luck at his home race.
Never finished his home race before.
But no, he'll get pole position, but then crash the car completely. So,
right. I also think too that we need to keep in mind, like, as I mentioned, like, the cost cap is big. Cost cap is a huge thing coming into this year, and I think this bodes well into the next question, right, Richie?
Yeah, this is from Brett from Toronto, because ironically, as I'm reading that, we're literally just kind of segue. Tyler, it was a great question because, like, we still got so much of the season to go, and I think this will be kind of good on maybe the midterm, like on the summer break. We come revisit this one from Brett from Toronto. Shout out Toronto with all the great questions.
Yeah, the six pulling through.
Anyways, yeah. So thoughts on the budget cap so far? Red Bull has made it ahead of Ferrari in recent races. Benotto believes the cap means Red Bull can't continue its rate of upgrades. Spending early a good thing or a gamble, kind of like Grid Rival? Lol. Well, I'm still ahead in Grid Rival, so I don't know what I'm doing, but I guess it's working.
I did have the most points last week of in our league by a little bit, but still had the most points.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh, I didn't check.
I'm still in third place, but I still had the most points of the week. But you go ahead, John. You can answer first.
I don't know. It's I think that this, like, obviously we were so used to Mercedes dominance for a number of years, and like I kind of liking what some of these like budget caps, because it really has to determine not just like, obviously we're talking about Red Bull and Ferrari, but it's opened up the gap, and it's opened up for a lot of teams to be competitive, which was not normally the case for the last couple of years. So obviously if you're Christian Horner or like Bernardo, like, you need to decide where you want to put your money on what kind of track and stuff. I honestly think the budget cap so far, it's working. We're not seeing the same consistent one team on the podium like we were used to, like the Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen. But I don't know. I think I've kind of been a fan of it so far. But I don't really. I think it's too early to tell so far for me.
I just think if Ferrari have literally spent nothing on upgrades yet, like if it's the same car since day one, and Red Bull have just gotten to you on corner speed, and yeah, they have that straight line speed like advantage, right? But if they just caught up to you after 5 races and they've made upgrades, like I think they made a few upgrades like over the past few races to get to like where Ferrari are, and to think that Ferrari are still leading in a drivers and a constructors championship with the same car that they put out, I think you got to be loving that if you're a Ferrari fan when you think about it, because like you've really had to spend nothing in your car so far, and you've been able to maximize your efforts, get points. And, especially Red Bull had a bunch of reliability issues to start the season, right? So they had to like spend some money on their budget cap just to be able to figure out what the heck was going on with their car from a reliability standpoint, make sure it could finish the race. So if you're Benotto, I think you got to be, patting your engineers, patting your team on the back so far that you really had nothing go wrong except for a couple of crashes that you can't control, right? Your car has been great for the first 5 races, and it's the same car since day one. Like that's going to be a huge advantage for you guys going down the end of the year, especially when teams are going to be struggling with the cost cap and getting under the budget, that, you know, I think he's taken a really methodical approach of it. First 5 races, figure out what's going on with the team. How's the car? How are you in relation to our competitors, right? And from there, you make the upgrades possible. I think this is a great start for Ferrari. I think it's too early to, be a little concerned. Yes, Red Bull have pulled back up here and there, but Leclerc's still like 25 points ahead of the championship. You're about 10 points ahead in the constructors. I know anything can change, but I'm saying right now, you guys are in a great spot. And I think you got to be loving the fact that you're doing this on a car that's been there since day one. And
Yeah.
if you're going to be starting to spend some money on this car, like, watch out.
Yeah, because I remember, if you remember last year, because like Bonotto said after the Italian Grand Prix, like, we're gonna have some upgrades coming in by Russia, and like you just see that consistency. You saw that consistency from Carlos and Charles after that. Like, I think Carlos had the longest point streak from the French Grand Prix onwards from any driver.
Yeah.
And was like, with that consistency in both of them, they were able to like get. Was it P3 on the on the constructor, sorry. And yeah, we're 19 points ahead on the drivers standings, and I think we're only Red Bull's cut it close, but it's
like
still
12 or 11,
6 points.
Only 6. Okay, man.
Yeah,
I'm inflating everything today. I'm just like the world economy right now, over hyperinflation everywhere.
Oh yes, exactly. But no, it'll be interesting to see how the next. I don't know much. I forget much about Barcelona. We're not going to talk about Barcelona, but maybe for next week's episode we'll preview the track and just what our thoughts are and see what comes out here. But Andrew, I think we get to go to your favorite segment.
All right, it's everybody's favorite segment. It's Wanka or Rockstar. It's the home race for the Haas GP. Of course we have to do it. We have to bring it back for Gunther.
Yeah. All right, so where do we want to start? Okay, let's start with the track. Rockstar or Wankster?
Definitely Wanker. Like, the track, they put the asphalt down, yet it was breaking up over the course of the weekend. I get it. You're converting a parking lot into a racetrack, but it's new rubber. Like, it's new asphalt. Like, it should not be breaking up like this. Like, I don't know if you saw in some corners, they had to like repatch the road. Like, you had to repatch the track. Like, it was different color of pigmentation between the asphalts. And it looked like part of it was new, part of it was older track. So it was like, George Russell had a really good discussion on it post race with like Sky Sports, and how it was, for a first time for inaugural GP at like a new track, you'd expect a better quality, because a lot of guys, you couldn't go outside the racing line really. Otherwise you were slipping a lot. Like, for instance, Bottas was P5, right? And George and Hamilton right behind the two of them. And
like,
he
amazing,
just takes one step off the racing line, and he almost goes into the wall. It was so dirty around the corner, like outside of the racing line, that he couldn't do anything. Like, you couldn't do anything. So I think, like, the track has got a lot of potential. I'm not gonna lie. I love the 3 DRS zones. I thought it was a fun track, very technical in that case, but the asphalt just needs to be better.
Yeah, and we saw that especially like with Carlos and Ocon's crash, and just when you mentioned parking lot, I'm just getting flashbacks of the Caesar Palace Grand Prix back in the 80s when they've raced in the Caesar's Palace parking lot. When I hear parking lot, I immediately think about how bad that Grand Prix was. Yeah, and I think it's definitely a trial by error. I mean, I just can't get over the fact that like so many issues, like within like after FP1, like how many drivers complained about the track.
Yeah, and like also the fact too, as you mentioned, like with Ocon and Sainz, like FIA, give your head a shake in terms of some of these barriers that are out. Like, Ocon had a 51G crash in FP3, and he said he was 50% feeling it the next day. Like it's a very tough crash and it's very hard to hit, but like, you bowed yourself on this safety, like you bowed on having the best safety in the world pretty much in terms of like racing. And yet, like when you're not putting up the appropriate barriers, I would say, to constitute this safe racing, even at high speed crashes, like you gotta gotta go back to the drawing board here. Especially when Sainz echoed Ocon's comments about how he should be feeling like this the next day.
Well, Ocon said that like within 10 laps into the race, he was like fatigued.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's, I think we both agree, track, thumbs down. It was a wanker. Okay, George Russell.
Oh, pure rock star, man.
I think this is his fifth consecutive race in the P5, top P5. He's literally carrying the Mercedes team right now.
Yeah, over his, the 7-time world championship teammate. Like there's sure a little bit of lady luck involved, especially like with regards to the strategy and having that safety car come out so that he could pit under the VSC and not lose time, but. You got to have some faith in strategy. And he's been Mr. Saturday's become Mr. Consistent when it comes to race weekend because he's been able to take that car and just drive the hell out of it and get results. I think the car was a lot better this weekend than it had been in the past. It's not there yet, obviously. And I know you're probably frustrated if you're a Mercedes fans, but you think you got, like, look at what he's doing with this car and imagine what he can do with it. Like, a world-class, a world championship driving car that Mercedes has been able to produce for the past 8 years.
Honestly, he's been the sleeper pick in fantasy. Like 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. He clearly, if you have the money, pick this guy up because he's clearly on a roll and he's really showing. He's really showing what he can do with a car that's not like 100% there. So I'm going to give him Rockstar on that. I think let's go to who was it? Also another Rockstar this weekend who is driving a terrible car, but still gets the points, but got red hair. Alex Albon.
So he dyed his red hair for, was it Australia? Where do you get this? Where do you get his point at? The first point at Australia, right? Yeah. When he did, like when he created, so the red hair was dying down, and then he decided, okay, I better redyed the hair, and gets points. So I think Albon is going to go full red hair for the rest of the season, so that he can keep scoring points. But yeah, he was able just to put the car in the window. Gets lucky with a couple crashes ahead for sure. But again, he's in the position to take over if something were to happen. And that's where Williams are at right now. They're kind of in a spot where they need something to happen, but they put themselves in the right position when it does. Mm-hmm. And that's how they've been able to score a couple points this season. Albon getting, 9th. I think he jumped up about 8 or 10 spots.
Yeah. So he jumped, and there was also the penalty with Alonso, and I think the Pierre Gasly penalty as well. No, actually, no. Yeah. The Pierre Gasly got a penalty too. And I'm trying to figure out what else happened towards the end, but he was able to jump a little additional spots there.
It's perfect. No, I think you're right, man. Complete rock star this week. I think it's crazy when you think about it, how he comes into Williams after 1 year of not being in F1, and he's miles ahead of Latifi, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's insane.
And I even said this. I said the driver to look out for today. I'm obviously not like oh my gosh, like watch for him, but there's some struggling going on with Latifi. Like, it's another weekend where he was not even close to the points. Not looking good for him.
He was still having some, I think he said there was some car issues too with regards to that, but yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to watch.
Yeah, he came from that. Obviously we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers couldn't finish the race. So he went from P19 to P14. But still, yeah, there's clearly some issues going on. And, we obviously wish him the best and hope like he's able to recover, or because like by summer, if things can't improve, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets shuffled out, unfortunately.
Nicky, you're a 6 guy. We love you, man. We want you to do well. Just keep your head down, keep fighting. You'll be okay.
Those doubles, keep drinking them, man. Another person, another driver who actually really impressed us this weekend, and I think is like really carrying the team, is Ocon. Especially after that crash. So rock star for me.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly was able to recover from a disappointing qualifying and crashing. Basically, I think he went from P20 to P8. If you had him on, not only that, but also like, because I think Alonso would even finish the race too.
Yeah, P20 to P8, and I know there were some pit lane starts for Aston Martin, so P20 asterisks, but still the fact that again, he made 12 spots up to finish in the points after having a 51G impact and after feeling 50% and being exhausted after 10 laps. Like, good on the kid to like get those points, and it just shows that Ocon's no joke. Like, he is a good racer, good driver, and I think like as Alpine continue to develop the car, I think like even Fernando said, he goes like, we should be aiming for points every weekend. And I love it. I think they should be. I think they have a car that has the potential to get between P7 to P10 consistently. And it's just on the drivers now going forward.
Yeah. And especially like, I think it's really, I should have said that Alonso did finish P11. So he did complete the race, despite all the penalties and everything going on there. And like, Ocon's really driving. He's really showing up that he is still a consistent driver. And like, I think Renault, the Alpine team, is the only engine that has the Renault engine. So no other teams have it. So it really, especially with the only team having their own engine, they're clearly showing off that they can do it. So there was actually a lot of chatter about this online. We're going to go to the next one. And I don't know what your take is on this. So our favorite grid walker, Martin Brundle, let's just say he had another weekend, which poor guy.
Why is it always in the U.S.?
That's true.
It's always in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. David Beckham didn't want to talk to him at one point. He mistaken the one basketball player with Patrick Mahone. Well, also, I thought there was rules on who can go on the grid. I guess no. I think once it's in Miami, everything's flown out. There's no rules.
Yes.
Anyone who had an influencer, like I'm pretty sure I saw like at least 100, more than 100 VIP badges given out on the grid there.
Every SoundCloud rapper, every TikToker, every Instagram influencer was on the grid walk. And poor Martin had no clue who they were. But you know what? Like, he can make the light of such like a awkward situation. And I truly respect it. It's such a tough job when you do that. You're running around the track. You don't know who these people are. You can, you think some people are who are they not, but they're not. You just make the most of it. And I know Martin doesn't want to be known as the guy that has these awkward grid walks. He wants to be known as a Formula F1 racer now in, the commentary box and helping that out. And I think he always will be. But Martin, we enjoy the initial grid walks. I know they're a little bit cringeworthy sometimes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help us from, we're always laughing throughout the day, throughout the time watching that. So I think, it was awkward for Brundle. I'm going to give him Rockstar. He made the most of the situation at the end of the day. And he was having fun out there as much as he could.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a Rockstar. He said on Twitter, he said, "You have no idea how much I dislike doing them," which he refers to the grid walk. "But somehow those crazy moments have defined my professional career. Oh, well, that's the way it is."
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's just sometimes you're going to be just known as that guy.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of talked about that. We'll save the post race as the last one, because I think there was a lot of things that really stood out there. But Pierre Gasly, as a lot of people are well aware, he He took out Lando Norris. Wasn't a good a day for him. That's for sure. Wasn't a good weekend for him.
I'm gonna channel my inner Erica on this one, and I'm gonna call him. It's definitely a wanker move because, like, what are you doing? Like, there was questions of whether or not he was coming out of the race in that case, but he just like, it's like some person, you know, in traffic, they just don't check their blind spot and they just come rearing into your lane. That's what happened with like Lando.
Like happened to Lando to be
like
clear,
happened to Lando, yeah. Like Gazzer just does not see him. And Norris is making a racing move, and Gazzer's just kind of like sitting there in no man's land doing nothing. Yeets it over into his lane and then creates the collision. And like, if I'm Lando Norris, I'm pissed because that's a point scoring finish right there. And it just got coughed up because some guy was just playing lollygagging around on the track.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough to watch because it clearly was like it was all Pierre Gasly's fault there. Yeah, like especially like a weekend that like McLaren needed to have to kind of still not be competitive, but like, you know, they obviously were focusing so much on social media that week, as you could tell. I think it was tough to watch.
Yeah, and like again, it would have been a points finish for Lando. Would have been no problem. I think McLaren wouldn't have had an issue with that, but you know, that kind of, you know, Garth ruined their entire race, right? And Danny Rick wasn't doing anything, unfortunately, today or yesterday, Sunday, I should say, but
yeah,
the way it was.
All right, so our last one on this segment, I have. So this one actually had a lot of banter on social media. The post race.
The most memeable moments of this race happened after the checkered flag.
The helmets.
I love them. I thought they were sick. Because we always used to complain that like I was complaining last year how like Pirelli didn't do like the special helmets. Like when they went to Sochi, they used to have like the Russian style helmets, and then when they went to Austin, they'd have the cowboy helmets. I was like, okay, like time to start bringing that back, and they did with the football helmets. It was funny because Max after the race goes like, I got to wear another helmet again.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he got like a signed Miami Dolphins helmet too for winning the race or something. Do you remember what the trophy was? I actually didn't know what it was.
No, I don't. What was the trophy?
I don't know. I forget. Anyways, if you actually have an idea what the trophy was, because I actually didn't really see the trophy. I was so well, also the police escort, number one. When do you ever? When do we ever?
Go ahead.
When do we ever see a police escort for F1 drive? Okay, I can understand F1 drivers have their own security detail and whatever, but like from the race to the podium, I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
I didn't realize. So the like the paddock was on one side of the Hard Rock Stadium, and then the podium was like on the other side was on the complete opposite side of the stadium. I was like, what the heck was going on? I was like, why are they going so far to get to the podium? And then all of a sudden they just have like this police escort, and like Jerry Horner and Christian Horner are walking down this road, and all of a sudden they just see these blue and red lights and these blaring.
And they're like, where's our ride?
And she's like, what the hell's going on? And they run out. It's just like, oh my God, you know, only in America would that happen, but it had to happen. You had to have it back. It just, you know, to me, it was such a fun, you know, it was fun to see, I thought. And I love the confetti or the streamers at the end. They just got sprayed. It looked like Spider-Man came and shot all of his webs at like the podium afterwards, because it was just streamers everywhere while they're trying to drink the champagne.
I wonder what they're going to do for the Canadian Grand Prix. If they did something for Miami, what could you do for Canada? Like, you know, like a
hockey helmets.
Hockey. Oh yeah. I was going to think either hockey helmets, a beaver tail, or
like moose antlers.
Oh, right in the comments section below. What do you guys think could be the either the helmet, the hats, or if they get something very Canadian, maybe a hockey stick?
That'd be sick, eh? If the trophy was like a hockey stick.
Well, it'll be the first time that they're coming back since 2019, so it could be something totally different. Gotta get our hands on that. Gotta get our hands on that trophy. So I think that's all for this segment. As always, if you guys have any additional ones that you want to put in our segment for Rockstar or Wankster, please put it in the comment section below. Really appreciate all the fan questions this episode. I know, any last thoughts, Andrew, before we kind of wrap this one up today?
No, I think it was an overall medium success for Miami. I think there's definitely some issues with the track that they need to address. But the spectacle is there. The fans were there. There was tons of fans. So they, definitely got what they wanted. They definitely got what they wanted out of that. I think it's going to be good to grow the sport there. And it never, I know like every celebrity was there, but it never hurts to have that much social power at these events, because people will tune in. If you're F1, people are just going to tune in when they see Michael Jordan, David Beckham at a race. Like, oh, why are they here? Boom. The spectacle that's Formula One. It's growing a lot in Miami. There was a lot of, I haven't seen F1 hype up a new race like this in a while, especially like on their YouTube page. Like a couple, like even the week before, a lot of stuff about Miami, about the USGP and hyping that up. I think they did a great job with regards from a marketing perspective on that.
Well, Haas had the best one, I think, in terms of cover. They had that Grand Theft Auto style artwork. I think that was my favorite. I think Lando had one of the best helmets, the basketball.
Oh yeah, the helmets were unreal this weekend.
Did you have a favorite? I think mine was Lando's.
I love Lando. I think Lando's for me was number one. I loved Bottas. He had one for different each day. Yeah. And I loved Max's helmet too. I thought Max's helmet was a lot of fun. And then honorable mention goes to Danny Rick's Ace Ventura Pet Detective one. That was pretty sweet.
Yes. Yes, it was. I totally forgot. Yeah, I remember watching that movie growing up. Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Yeah. Pet Detective. I think I'm saying it right. Jim Carrey, good old Canadian guy.
Alrighty then.
All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. Andrew, obviously another great episode. I think there was a lot of good things that we saw this race. Some drawing boards for a couple of teams have to go back to the factories and fix some issues for them leading to Barcelona in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I just also want to shout out Erica. I know she's not on the pod today, but there will be a new segment of podcast episodes coming up focused on the W series. I think that's going to be I'm really excited to hear what Erica's got in store for everybody with regards to the W series. They were in Miami this weekend. I watched a bit of it. Jamie Chadwick is a phenomenal driver. And I think just the pure class of the Formula One W series. And I can't wait to hear more about it, to be honest with you. I can't wait to watch more. And I can't wait for Erica to shine in these podcasts related to W series.
Yeah, no, full credit as she proposed this idea to us, and we're 100% behind it to support her. So we're excited to help in any way we can, and obviously any way to help promote Formula One and racing in general, whether here, if it's in Canada or around the world. So on that note, I just want to thank you guys for listening to this week's Season 2, Episode 8 of the F1 Podcast. I am your host, X Ricci, with your co-host, Andrew.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe to Ricci's YouTube page for amazing F1 content, not only from the podcast, but on his Twitch, as well as subscribe to us and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can take us on the road anywhere you go. And listen to great F1 content. And shout out again to F1 Ian for his wonderful website. And we look forward to continuing our partnership with him.
And I also want to add, what great way to go into work listening. What's a better way of going into work? Listening to our beautiful voices talk about one of the fastest growing sports right now in the world. Cannot argue for any. Yeah. On that note, I'm going to end today's episode. Thanks so much for watching and listening to today's episode. Looking forward to next week. See you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, what a race, mates. That was nice. Tough one, but really good.